Welcome, everybody. We are live-ish here from Zoom to do our finals of the Women Creators Pitch Competition. We are going to be doing a little live stream. I don't know if it's going to be super well attended, but since the folks at Silicon Slopes sent some URLs out, we wanted to make sure we did our little part to honor those and make sure that they were live if people tuned in. So tonight is the culmination for what Elle and Haley probably feel has been like a very, very long week. So we had pitch submittals from 3 different countries, 7 different states, all within 10 days of making this competition live. And the call to action was pretty simple. It was this. If you are a woman creator and you're working on a business or a project, or you're a musician or an artist or a filmmaker, come and apply. And we had tons and tons and tons of amazing applications. From those applications, we narrowed it down to an Elite 8 at a kickoff party last Friday at Lawson Art Gallery. After that, we did a full day of kind of rush to revenue training on Tuesday at Midday Connect, sponsored by Summit Venture Studio. Then on Wednesday, that Elite 8 did a pitch competition. So 6 minutes of pitching, no visual aids, and 2 minutes of Q&A. And from that, we ended up with a final 4. And then yesterday, I'm just like running out of oxygen explaining what happened. Then yesterday, we took the final 4 and kind of in collaboration with Dear World, we did our final 4 event. And from those 4 who pitched for 12 minutes with visual aids and a few minutes of Q&A, we ended up with these final 2. So Haley, Elle, I just want to give you like a round of applause for making it here. So what these folks are competing for, one is obviously just the SWAC, the championship trophy and how cool that is. But also they're competing for a $750 cash prize, in-kind services from Start for brand book development, positioning and marketing development, in-kind services from Nexus IT to help do kind of a technology and security review, in-kind services from the shop, who will give them 4 months of, or maybe it's 3 months for 4 people, collaborative space and working space, in-kind services from Now CFO to get any financial and controller kind of stuff organized. And we have a couple other little prizes built in there as well. So to get the night started off, I'd really like all of our judges to just quickly introduce themselves. I will hand it to the person that is closest to me, Cassandra from the blocks. If you could just quickly introduce yourself to our contestants and then popcorn it over to somebody else. And just remember, Haley and Elle are our 2 contestants.
Awesome. My name is Cassandra Yerkes. I'm the operations manager over at The Blocks, which is Salt Lake's cultural core. And essentially what I do every week is find people in the arts community in Salt Lake who need help and support them and make sure that their events are well-rounded. And yeah, I basically just get to work with really awesome people every day. So I'm excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Let's see. So we've got Amy. Is that someone I can throw it to? Perfect.
Yeah, thanks, Cassandra. Hi, everybody. So I'm Amy Caldwell. I'm one of the co-founders and business development officer over at Rev Road down in Provo. It's a business service firm where we exchange 2 years of services for equity as we help companies build and grow and scale and keep control. And love being connected to Vic and Shay and the Start community, and excited to see what Elle and Haley are going to present tonight.
Alex, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, Vic. Hi, everyone. What a cool, amazing week it's been by your description, Vic. My name is Alex Hesse. I'm the executive director at the Leonardo. We're downtown Salt Lake City, and our mission is to inspire creativity and innovation. We do run a lot of entrepreneurship programs for youth and so forth, so I'm really excited for today as well. And I guess I should pop it over to Stephanie, maybe.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Makai. I'm recently retired from Columbus Community Center as the Chief Innovation Officer. One of my, a big part of my job besides fundraising was doing some deep work in social entrepreneurship, looking for ways to get people with disabilities employed in the community through entrepreneurial efforts. And that included the work of building an autism program and a mixed use affordable housing complex so people could live and work together.
Shay, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Shay, and I do community marketing at Start. Yeah, I'm super excited and passionate about just helping entrepreneurs, and I'm super excited that we're celebrating women creators today. So thanks.
And our awesome sponsors from V-School, Tony, Mo, do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Hey, Mo Reeder. I'm a co-founder at V-School. We are an education to, we're an accelerator. We get people trained up in a skill set like coding and design, and we make sure that you land an awesome job in technology. Work really, really closely with underserved populations, from refugees to folks of color, folks that have had less access historically to technology. And we run a lot of scholarships to make sure that we knock down those barriers and make this more accessible to all the good people out there. Thanks for having us.
My name's Tony Borash. I'm the vice president over here. Thank you.
I can't thank everybody enough that was able to find a little bit of time here. We've had some reorganization for the week due to COVID, and really, really appreciate all of you being here. And it looks like we actually have our last judge just hopping in right now. Elle, do you maybe want to just give a quick intro? And then Haley, I'll have you do a quick intro. Trina, I'll have you introduce yourself last. And then I kind of drew little papers. So Trina, after you're up, Haley, we'll start with your presentation, and Elle will finish off the night with yours. So yeah, let's maybe go through that order. Elle, a little quick introduction, and then Haley.
Yeah, hi, I'm Elle Griffin. You know me, Trina, but I'm the editor over at Utah Business Magazine, and today I'm proposing a piece of serial fiction.
And I'm Gaby Conley. I am proposing myself as the manager for local R&B recording artist Jay Warren, and my presentation is about an investment opportunity in his brand.
And Trina, bring us home. Give us a little introduction and we'll get going tonight.
Yeah, and I apologize for the delay. Thanks for everybody for your patience. It's so fun to be here and see everybody. So Trina Limpert, I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Rise Next. We work on a lot of diversity initiatives, both from a corporate consulting and then also from a community programs perspective. So excited to be here with all of you.
All right, it is time to rock and roll. So after hours and hours of preparation and then pitching and then going to Zoom meetings and all of the rest, Haley, as soon as you are ready, 15 minutes will be on the clock. And just a reminder, the grading criteria will be as such, or the scoring criteria will be as such. First, clarity on the purpose, like why is this important? Clarity on the market, clarity on how they will go after the market, a little bit of information about what they've learned through this week, and then finally a plan over the next 6 months. So for all of our judges, your scoring form should have scoring around all of that. But just as soon as you start speaking, Haley, I will go on mute and then start the timer. And of course, when the timer's up, I will come off mute and let it chime.
Okay. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you for this opportunity. As I said, my name is Gaby Conley. I'm a graduate from Brigham Young University's School of Business. In college, I interned in Nashville at the Country Music Association, and I fell in love with the music business. I had every intention of moving there the second I graduated, but I even almost accepted a transfer to Belmont University's music business program. But life happened in the very best way. I ended up getting married, dating my now husband, and he was still in school. So I took a general marketing position at a higher ed software company in the Salt Lake City area. Originally, I was the sole marketer in their B2C division, and then I switched to become the sole marketer in their B2B division. And I worked there for 5 years, during the course of which a friend introduced me to local R&B recording artist Jay Warren, and I quickly began working as manager, and I've been in that capacity for 3 years now. I currently live in LA, and Jay's the only client on my roster currently because I'm a full-time mom, and time is a huge constraint when you have a 3-year-old. But I do plan on adding more because my son is about to start preschool. So these are big times. Because this is, there's me. Because this is a women's competition, I thought it might be interesting to look at the representation of women in music. I couldn't find a statistic for women in artist management specifically, but in a super sophisticated count that I did of executives at the 3 major labels, 28% of them were women. And in actual studies that were done on female producers and songwriters, recording artists, the numbers didn't get much better. What I found interesting was that the underrepresentation has nothing to do with gender parity in music education, because in most countries, the student body in music-related studies is almost 50-50. So we had a presentation yesterday by a woman named Erin, and it really started making me curious how women, and more specifically myself, fit into this industry. And I just found it all super fascinating, and I thought you might too. But I'm switching gears because I know that I don't have much time. So who is my client, Jay Warren? I mentioned he's a recording artist. He's also a songwriter, a performer, a role model, a husband, a father, and an activist. But to his audience, he is the guy that reignites the belief in real love in a culture of Netflix and chill and dating hookup sites and rappers that flaunt side chicks all over the radio. So you can think of him as a new age John Legend, but with more of a Bruno Major sound. So I'd like to take a step back and have you kind of internally think through who your favorite musicians are. And then once you've landed on that artist or band, I'd like you to ask yourself why. It could be that their music gave words to an experience that you were going through, or they represented something aspirational. Perhaps they made you feel accepted or understood, or their talent was just out of this world. You could be like my 10-year-old self, who in 1999 just thought Aaron Carter was super, super cute. But whatever it was, they were clearly successful, because what makes successful artists is their audience and their ability to connect with that audience through music or through music videos or social media content, capturing their attention and ultimately leading them towards a conversion, whether that was a concert ticket or purchasing their music or their merch. So an artist can be incredibly talented, but they are only as valuable as the audience they build. So let's talk about Jay's audience. We've nicknamed her Chelsea to really just make her more human, and it's easier to refer to her that way. But she's female, she's aged 18 to 30, she doesn't have kids, and she has a general interest in pop music. In the 3 years that Jay has been releasing music, he has produced the following content to this audience that averages out to about 15 songs a year. And I'd just like to point out that the majority of the supplemental content listed was released in 2020 alone. This content resonated with an audience that then was able to help him chart #1 on iTunes when his debut album came out last September. He's amassed over 15 million streams and downloads across across streaming platforms. He's gotten over 60 notable press pieces. He's garnered over 2.5 million views on YouTube, and he's toured all over the Western United States and Canada. From a financial perspective, we've invested $15,000 and we've turned it into $88,000 of gross revenue, which is a 5x increase. And you may be curious how that charts year to year. It's been a pretty positive trajectory, with the exception of everyone's BFF year 2020, which shut down some of our biggest revenue streams, specifically events. So before we dig into those numbers a little further, I thought it might be helpful to offer some context. J. Warren LLC is comprised of 12 core revenue streams, like most other artist projects. For the sake of time, I'm only going to go over the ones that are probably most unfamiliar. So songwriting fees are the upfront fees that another artist will pay you to record a song that you wrote. Sync fees are upfront fees paid to license your music to TV shows and movies, trailers, video games, or basically any time visual media is paired with music. Pro royalties are the royalties that are paid out anytime your music is played in a public setting, like in those TV shows and commercials and movies, but also anytime your music is played in a live venue or radio. And then features are upfront fees paid to you to have you featured on another artist's recording. So when they actually release that track. So those are the core revenue streams. We can jump back into the numbers now with that context. So this is how we spent the $15,000. I'd just like to point out that the majority of that went to content creation. 45 of that 60% was just spent on music production costs alone. And then when we jump to gross revenue, we brought it in through the following revenue streams. His biggest has always been sales and streaming sales and streaming royalties, but events has been the second and third. So for an artist that's only been at it 3 years and doing it independently, he's done super, super well, but we're only just getting started. So in the next 12 months, we have a goal of landing a single on the Billboard Top 100, landing an album on the Billboard Top 200, really ramping up his social media presence to 1 million followers across platforms, and signing a publishing admin deal. And to be clear, these are really lofty goals, but so was our 2020 goal, and we did that of landing number 1. So we're pretty confident that we know what it's going to take to get there. So that plan looks like this. In the next 12 months, we are going to produce 1,200 pieces of content, doubling the amount of content we've ever done in a single year. This will include 30 songs, and that's going to break out to 1 song every 4 weeks with 3 albums every 4 months. And then the rest of the content is going to be supplemental in the form of music videos, a podcast episode series where he interviews other artists, a behind the scenes blog series, YouTube covers where he really showcases his vocal talent by singing other people's songs that they may be familiar with. And then the rest is all social media posts that will both market the above content, but it'll also add additional flavor to our overall content strategy. The frequency of this content is what will continually build that audience momentum for each subsequent release and really move the needle. So when we also pair that with real ad dollars to get this content in front of a wider group of his target audience, we really believe that we can create a marketing funnel that nurtures our audience towards a social follow and an eventual conversion. So looking at our marketing plan from a marketing funnel lens, it looks like this. It's a little messy, but to summarize it, with ads that utilize clips from our most interesting content, that will lead to clicks to his YouTube page to view that full piece of content, which will all have an end screen that point to related or similar content on his social media, which hopefully would then lead to a social follow, and then a conversion over time in the form of merch or his membership subscription service on Patreon or a concert ticket. Because we acknowledge the marketing rule of 7, where a prospective buyer may need to hear your marketing message 7 times before converting, we're also planning to run a remarketing ad campaign and utilizing strategic content strategies for virality and shareability to bring them back into our marketing funnel. And at the same time that we're pursuing our audience from a B2C angle, we will also be indirectly pursuing her from a B2B angle by media that she may be consuming, which would be another touch point. So the way in which we do this is pitch Jay's music to music supervisors who place the syncs. They're called music producers in the TV commercial world, which is why there's a weird splash there. But we'll also be pitching to playlist curators, since playlists are the new discovery tool in music. And we'll be reaching out to influencers and YouTubers that she likes and is already paying attention to and watching. And we'll offer them a whitelist to use his music without copyright infringement. And then lastly, we're going to pitch him to podcasts and press that she may be consuming for additional PR. So I want to thank this competition tremendously for helping me really succinctly organize these thoughts into a marketing plan. I've been working on this deck for a hot minute. And it wasn't until this week that I realized that a potential investor would probably not only be interested in what content we plan to make, but how we market it. So thank you to this competition for helping me do that. I think it's added a lot and really filled in some holes to this story. So we spent months modeling out what we really think it's going to take to produce this content and exponentially grow Jay's brand according to our goals. And this is what we've come up with while still being extremely resourceful and disciplined in our spend. With this plan, we're spending more on marketing the content than actually creating it, which is new for us. And unfortunately, where a lot of artists go wrong because they simply just don't have the additional funds. And then we've also created revenue projections, and you'll notice that it's only from 6 revenue streams out of the 12, because we wanted to be super conservative in our estimates by only including those that we knew that we could directly influence and that 2020 couldn't affect. So in year 1, we expect a gross revenue of $500,000. And then I've also included the specific target metrics that would be need to met in each revenue stream to hit our goal, and you'll find those in gray. When you look at year 2, we expect that to jump up to $800,000 in gross revenue. I put together this slide in the same format just to show a consistent pattern of growth. And you'll notice that the percentages of each revenue stream haven't changed year to year, but because our plan is so dependent on Jay's audience growing year 1, it requires less volume in each category simply because he's able to charge more. In music, record labels are the only entities that are spending substantial amounts of money on artists' careers. And because of that, they're able to make a huge land grab. Combine that with the fact that they've recently restructured their deals, it just makes for a terrible deal for artists. So to summarize that, these new 360 label deals offer an artist in advance, and in exchange, they take 87% of their record revenue, 10 to 20% of their non-record net revenue, exclusivity for 1 release with the option to extend 5 to 6 releases. And the worst of all is that they own the creative rights to all of those creative works in perpetuity. So weird. The pros to that are obviously the large budget, the industry expertise, and the access to the gatekeepers like radio, but it's a lot to ask when it essentially caps the artist upside indefinitely and it controls their IP, and it doesn't even show that they'll record or release the music. There is an alternative in this very static and mostly traditional industry. If an artist can find access to outside capital sources, they can essentially eliminate the need for those labels and retain more creative control of their brands. So Chance the Rapper, Macklemore, and Lauv are all recent and really successful examples of this. And I came across these quotes regarding the interesting state that we're finding the music industry in. And to summarize them quickly, the advent of streaming is starting to dismantle major labels' control. And then there's also cheaper tools that are coming to market to create music, and then there's social media to market it. So all in all, it's creating a more democratized industry where independents can now succeed. So herein lies the opportunity. What we're proposing is $180,000 as a one-time investment. The investor would receive 50% of gross revenue until they double their money, which would then drop down to 3% of gross revenue with a $2 million cap. I realize that this is an unorthodox investment, but I think it could be an interesting opportunity in diversifying an investment portfolio. Sorry, I need to calm down. I need to take a breath. And it's also worth noting, again, that we've been super conservative in our estimates. So you've seen the estimates for year 1 and year 2 in previous slides. Here it's listed out through year 5 with the gross revenue listed in the larger font, investor calendar return listed in the white, and investor total return listed in the gray. And under these deal terms, the investor breaks even by year 2, doubles their money by year 3, and triples their money by year 5. Again, these are conservative. They don't include touring. They don't include residuals just because it's so impossible to calculate those. And more than likely, they would add additional cushion to these numbers at some point in the 5 years. We just don't know when. And lastly, I'd like to close with this quote that Jay received from from a fan when his debut album released this last September. I don't have time, but it's a really sweet text. She really was moved by his music. And I just wanted to end with, music can change the world, and Jay's music specifically is already doing that. And I hope you'll join us in bringing that to a wider audience. Thanks.
Wow, what an awesome presentation. So we have about 5-ish minutes budgeted for Q&A, but this being the championship round and all, we'll make sure that anybody that is judging today has an opportunity to ask questions. So just go ahead and jump in and unmute yourself and ask questions to Haley if you have any.
Hi, this is Trina.
Hi.
So great presentation. I love seeing this. I know nothing about the music industry, so I'm coming in, broadening my mindset here a little bit in understanding it. So you covered a lot of the really good points on that I wouldn't understand, right? As far as how the industry works, who your market is, what your channels are. I thought that was all really, really good. And as we got into the forecast, I did have a question on, are those based on current revenue? You had that at the beginning, but I didn't quite get the tie in as far as your revenue forecasts. What are those based on? Are they current revenue or projected based off something else?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what they're based on, well, okay, let me back up. So what we find ourselves at is a crossroads. We've been able to do this on a super shoestring budget, but we're realizing that without money to market it, because we're basically just covering the cost of creating content, we're looking at like a 10-year time period in which we're trying to break his brand. For the first time this last year, we've had a little bit of money to put towards spending, and we just saw like everything skyrocket as far as his numbers and his streaming. And we realized like it really doesn't take, it just takes a little bit of money to throw at it, at this content, to bring it in front of a wider audience. So those projections are based on what we believe just a little bit of marketing dollars will take it to. And then it also accounts for the fact that Jay and I have both been the full-time stay-at-home parents for our families. Both of our children are now about to enter preschool. So in addition to having, or I guess in addition to cramming all the work we can in nap times and after bedtime, we'll be able to have more of the working day to add to that. And from a time perspective, we're accounting for all that would entail as well. So it's a combination of having marketing dollars, but also having a ton more time to put towards the project.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Haley, great presentation. I'm like Trina. I have little knowledge of the industry. I love music, and I know the types and why I love the musicians that I do. But as far as the business model goes, what are other musicians doing in the same position? How are they promoting themselves and growing their brand?
Yeah, artists can take all kinds of different, aims at it. For us, we definitely focus on streaming and sales, just because we thought if we can have those press pieces and those big standout moments to then give to gatekeepers, that the rest of the revenue streams will just kind of happen organically, like landing speak placements. A lot of artists, unfortunately, they don't have a team, or they'll just kind of split their attention across all the revenue streams. And it takes them a lot longer to accomplish the same goals. Or other artists may focus solely on touring. For us, that's expensive. Artists don't even break even for the first 2 years, so we just never took that route. But I'd probably say that that's probably the more traditional approach. And eventually, I think for most artists, the goal is to land a label deal. We just don't have a lot of interest in that, and we think that we have the skill set that we could do it without them.
Awesome. Do we have any last little questions? I'll take that. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know if it's possible to go back to the slide where, so you're essentially saying putting in $180,000, and that will drive, you're looking for straight impressions. Like what you want are streams and downloads and people to listen to the actual music. What if any research and data is understood? Is it literally just that like his music is so good that money drives streams, or is it there's an algorithm to the platforms that he's streaming on? Like, is there any math and any science and art to figuring out how to market to get more streams? Or is it literally just like you dump money into a machine and that machine, because he's good enough, it turns out X amount of output? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. So like I described before, we just haven't had marketing dollars to put towards this. But even still, he's done so well from a streaming perspective. So 50 million streams with almost no marketing budget is quite impressive. So I think that speaks to the quality of his music and how people, when they can organically find it, take to it. So, and then again, because the last year we were able to have, I believe it was like $3,000, not even, that we put towards marketing a bunch of different assets. We just saw that astronomically grow. So we just use that as a rough formula for what we think it could take. And then so much of the, I mean, that's mostly just 180,000 is actually more towards the B2B side. A lot of the spending will have to come in the form of like marketing and having the tools needed to market to some of those B2B players. So I'd say like it breaks out to a majority of it's being spent on ads, but it's also buying the tools we need to tackle this B2B arm efficiently as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I just have a quick question because I don't know the industry either, and I don't know the demographic very well, that younger demographic that you're reaching towards. What do you have competition out there trying to do the same thing? Is this model something that a lot of people are trying on? Are you going to bump up against smaller marketing attempts as out in the space as you're looking for investors?
Yeah, I'd say the rise in independent artists is definitely increasing. Like I said, it's just becoming so democratized that it's cheaper to produce music, and people can go viral on social media. So I definitely say from like a pure volumes perspective of independent artists that he's competing with, even in the same genre, but even without, that number is probably growing. It definitely is growing. As far as the amount of artists that are taking this approach, it's just not marketed well. People, unless you're really studying artist trajectories, it's not well known. We had 2 other artists in this competition, and both of their plans were to just tackle a label deal, to get the attention of a label deal, to hopefully get enough clout to have more negotiating power in a label deal. So I think from like a rough anecdotal perspective, that helps offer a little bit of insight there.
Excellent. So I'm going to close out the Q&A. Haley, awesome job. I think everybody, let's give it up for Haley for a phenomenal Q&A, a phenomenal presentation. So our next presenter, Elle Griffin, let's get you up, and then I will set the timer just as soon as your screen is sharing and you are speaking.
All right, let's see. Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. I've done this presentation a bunch of times this week, and so I'm actually going to change it up a little bit today because I've been giving a lot of stats and it was making everyone depressed about publishing, and they wanted to know more about me was the feedback. So that is what I'm going to give you today. So I'm Elle Griffin, and I moved to Salt Lake a few years ago and got basically the only magazine editor job that existed here, which was the editor-in-chief of Utah Business Magazine. Super awesome. I was also completing my graduate studies in Mariology, which is the study of the Virgin Mary. Super obscure, but really I just wanted access to that Marian library. I was also very obsessed with Gothic novels and French literature. So I was reading Dracula, Les Miserables, Phantom of the Opera, Count of Monte Cristo, A Christmas Carol. These are just like my favorite books, just loving them so much. But the problem with French literature, and especially Gothic French literature, is that you get to the bottom of it very quickly. You run out, the 1800s come along, and then nothing. There's some kind of modern novels that try to tackle on that world, but I just really wanted to stay in that world for a few years. I just wanted to kind of, I just had this idea of kind of wrapping myself up in that kind of Gothic, noir, Catholicism, voodoo, Americana, like the tropics, New Orleans kind of vibe. So I decided I would set out to write a Gothic novel myself. I spent the last 3 years writing the novel and kind of incorporated all those things into it. It's, 1700s New Orleans, so French, Spanish influence, lots of rum plantations, lots of chances for really odd things to happen. And I had like so much fun writing it. It was just the best thing ever. It was like reading The Count of Monte Cristo, but like for 3 years. So it was really great. Then I finished the book, and that's when I realized that the industry is not well set up to publish my book. I submitted my book to more than 100 agents, and my response back, kind of how the industry works is you submit your book to an agent. The agent then tries to get you a publisher. The publisher then tries to get you, sales. But it's kind of a raw deal anyways, because just like the music industry, in book publishing, if you work with a publishing house, they get 75% of the revenue, and books don't sell, as you can see from this little chart. So the only way that a publishing house is making money is if they're selling hundreds of thousands of copies and up. And most books sell hundreds of copies and thousands of copies. So niche appeal is definitely the more normal thing. Books also don't make money. So it takes a lot, if most books are selling between 0 and 10,000 copies, that means most books are making between 0 and $42,000, which is not a lot if you spend 3 years writing something. And so there's just kind of this industry setup that doesn't really work. So, I should specify, it does work for people that sell 100,000 books and up. They're the outliers. But I knew for sure that my book was not a mass appeal book. It was a niche appeal book. It was for people like me that are interested in that kind of thing. So my question was, can you monetize a niche audience? So this is kind of where the creator economy idea comes in. There's this sort of idea that if you have 1,000 true fans and they spend $100 on you a year, then you can make a living as, make $100,000 a year salary with only 1,000 true fans. We've seen this in a lot of different industries. In writing specifically, we've seen it in nonfiction. A lot of nonfiction authors will write on Substack, and they're making millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, where we've seen that being successful. The thing is, we haven't really seen it in fiction. So I have 2 use cases here of some creator economy getting fiction books out. The first was Andy Weir's The Martian, which started out as a serial on his blog for just 3,000 people, but it was free. And then he launched it on Amazon Kindle for $1.99, and it sold 30,000 copies, and that's what attracted his publishing house. N.K. Jemisin, she is a science fiction writer. She got her start on Patreon, and she was actually making $5,200 a month from just Patreon people following her novel chapters as they came out. And then she ended up, that attracted the deal of a traditional publisher as well. So she went that route too. But I kind of kept coming, so I kind of was like, well, there might be something in the creator economy for me. But I'm just not sure yet. There's no real use cases. So I went back to one of my favorite books, The Count of Monte Cristo, which was released as a serial, as most books were in the 1800s. It's actually called a feuilleton or a feuilleton. It's a portion of the newspaper that used to be devoted just to fiction. So Alexander Dumas's book, The Count of Monte Cristo, came out in 18 installments for a newspaper called the Journal des Débats, which went out to 10,000 subscribers in Paris. And people followed this like it was Game of Thrones. They were like so wrapped. Like, did you read the most recent chapter of Alexander Dumas's book? Have you seen what just happened to Edmond Dantes? Like, everyone was just like really into it. And it's because it's written kind of the way a TV show would be written, where you're writing the chapters as they're coming out and people are watching them as they're coming out. So you kind of have this hype going on. So I just thought, it used to work. And in fact, there was a quote in a neighboring newspaper while it was coming out that I kind of want to read to you guys. The author said, "The press pays nearly 300 francs per day for feuilletons for Alexandre Dumas. But what will the result be in 1848? That he will have made 32,000 to 64,000 francs per annum for 2 to 3 years for writing profitable trash, the color of the foulest mud in Paris?" Which I loved because people were like hating on it because they were saying, oh, it's not true literature because it's not like a bound novel, you know, he's like writing it as a serial, like it's pop fiction or something. Just to translate those numbers to today's dollars, he was making $200,000 to $400,000 a year for writing serial novels, which is about $65,000 per chapter that he was paid. And he was a mixed race author living in Paris in the mid 1800s. So he did pretty well with it. And I just thought there's got to be an option to bring this back today. This, by the way, is this book. I actually met with a collector this week and he had the first edition of Count of Monte Cristo printed in English, and I got really freaked out and excited, and that's me holding the book right there. That was this week, so crazy. Okay, so I'm gonna try to release my own strange Gothic novel as a serial starting this fall. I'm gonna charge $5 a month, and what that's gonna include is weekly chapters. So every Friday I'll send a new chapter out. There will be an online discussion room where everybody can get involved. There will be a video chat where people can ask me questions and have like lots of FaceTime right up and close and personal with me and my fans. At the very end, this whole thing, there's 42 chapters in my book, so it'll take about 42 weeks. At the end, I'll have a wrap party and I'll be selling collector's copies of the book that are all autographed and leather bound like the Count of Monte Cristo, and just make it really artsy and fun and have this kind of wrap party for everyone who's been following it. And, you know, I just kind of thought if I can only have 2,000 subscribers, well, that's $10,000 a month, which is a good living for anybody. So I just thought, well, why not try it? So my goal is my first book will launch this fall, and it'll run till May of 2021. And then I'm going to take a 2-month break for the summer. And then I'm going to launch my second book, August 2022. So my goal is to reach those 2,000 paid subscribers by the time that I'm launching my second book. So Substack, if you have I'm doing this all via Substack newsletter. Substack estimates that about 10% of your followers will convert to paid followers. So that would mean I need 20,000 newsletter subscribers to get 2,000 paid newsletter subscribers to get to that number. So how I'm going to do this was actually inspired by Haley, because she had those detailed spreadsheets, and I was just like, I linked in her like right after her first presentation, and I was like, okay, I need to do the same thing, but for writing. So here's my version of what Haley did for Jay, which is, okay, so if I want to hit 20,000, how do I get rid of this little Zoom thing? Okay, if I want to get to 20,000 subscribers by August of 2022, I mapped out exactly how many I need to be growing by every month. Starting in April, which is basically 1,000. I need 1,000 subscribers a month now till my book launches in August, and then keep that up through my book launch through the year. So you can see here kind of how that maps out my income with my first year hitting at about 59,000, and then by the time my second book, I just was being kind of lazy with my year 2, being like, well, if I have 20,000, I don't need more newsletter subscribers. 2,000 is enough fans for me, so I'll just keep it at that. If it grows, great. But I just wanted to showcase that if I hit that milestone, then I'm making $100,000 a year as an author, as a serial author. So that was my plan. I have how I'm going to get there is I have this other tab, Operation 1,000 Followers, where I'm starting to keep track of my posts, and I have a list of all of the people that I'm going to guest post and do interviews with and do that kind of thing with, and I will pitch those every single day and try to just get featured on as many different things that I can. And that's it. That's my plan. Here, I'll just do this. And this is my link if you want to subscribe, ellegriffin.substack.com.
Amazing. What a great presentation. And also very cool to see this come along throughout the week. All right, for our judges and our final contestant, what questions do you guys have?
I have one. First of all, great presentation as well. Can you clarify for me a little bit how the serial chapter publishing relates to sales of the finished book? Do you think that the serial publishing will then create a market for people to buy the actual printed book, or what's the connection between the two?
Yes, I do think so. So my plan is I'm having the hardcover issue that I'm printing for that'll come out at the end of the year will just be for super subscribers, which on Substack you can choose like a premium amount that those people will get like a special merchandise and stuff. So the people that are super fans that pay $200 a year will get this leather bound copy, and I'm calling it the very first edition. And then I'm going to launch the first edition after that on Wattpad and Kindle Direct as free on Wattpad, $1.99 on Kindle. It's as low as you can go, just to gain more readers. With the idea is, okay, maybe you couldn't afford the book. You can get it now for free on these platforms. And now I'm launching my second book, and that one's paid if you want to jump in on that one. I'm kind of building it over time. And of course, publishing houses are actively shopping on Amazon. And if you reach a certain number of sales, then you'll get approached by a traditional publisher being like, oh, I saw you sold 30,000 copies. That's 20,000 more copies than most people sell. So then you kind of get on the radar for traditional publishing. But kind of like Jay's plan, I don't even know if that's a route that I want to go, just because you lose all rights and then I couldn't do this, like put it on several different mediums and that sort of thing. So.
Hey, Elle, how are you?
Hi.
So good to see you virtually again.
You.
At some point we'll have to actually meet each other. So I really like this idea, and I had some questions, two-part question for me. So Substack, I'm curious about how that platform works. How does it tie into the marketing? What are you gaining from a marketing and awareness perspective from Substack? Because I'm not familiar with that platform. But also, I think you heard it throughout this week of people wanting to get to know you, and people want to buy and know the creator, right? So part of that is not just the platform and the marketing, and that's like, how do you create your brand, and what's your plans on having people get to know you and you as a creator?
Yeah, so my newsletter right now is free, and it is my rambling thoughts about life. It's basically my inner psyche. So you can get to know me real fast if you subscribe to my newsletter. It's free and comes out every Sunday. And that kind of, the whole thing is like 90s nostalgia, and I name every single issue after like a Friends episode. So it's very me. And so the idea is you can subscribe to my newsletter for free and get to know me. And then if you want to pay, then you just add on from there, and then you get the fiction. Substack doesn't provide any marketing on its own, but I will say so many people have Substack newsletters these days that there's like a whole community around Substack writing, and there's like Substack newsletters about Substack newsletters. It's like a whole kind of cult thing. It's like Blogger used to be in the 90s. So I think that does kind of help. And I'm like in a lot of different Discord rooms and stuff with other Substack writers just talking about it.
Wonderful, thank you.
And now they have blog rolls. It's just like the 90s, you guys. So you can say on the side of your Substack, like all the other newsletters you like, and it's awesome.
Elle, I have some questions for you. First of all, I'm a literature person, but long time ago, I probably read that first edition. I'm that old, but I am old enough to know that the approach to serializing stories has a cycle to it. I remember the old days when the New Yorker did that, and I couldn't wait to get the next one, and then it kind of died out. I'd like a better understanding of who your demographic is, what research you did around your demographic. I'm assuming it's a younger demographic, and why were you really able to establish that there is an interest in serializing particular genres? Did you take a deep dive into who's going to help you get to this goal?
Yeah, so there actually is starting to be a really big following for serial fiction, mostly on the platform Wattpad. Wattpad now has 90 million users that spend like an hour a day on the platform, all millennial and Gen, what's the one below millennial? Z?
Oh, who knows?
Okay. And that's exactly what happens. People publish fiction and they'll write one chapter at a time, and you get a notification on your phone that says the next chapter's been released, and you can follow all the books you want to. And that's why I want to release it on there after I'm done on my platform, because it opens it up to 90,000 other users that are already serial fiction readers and are totally bought into that. The only reason I'm not starting there is because you can't monetize there, at least by choice. Wattpad picks the most successful books on Wattpad and then monetizes those with what are called like micro payments, where people can just like pay more to keep going. And the other community that's really into that is the fan fiction community. If you go on, it's called AO3 is the biggest one, Archive of Our Own. They have like 40 million people that read fan fiction on there. Like, oh, so you love Twilight, you'll want to follow, here's Twilight fan fiction. So I certainly want to tap into, my audience is definitely going to be millennial Gen Z, but also the kind of like moody emo millennial Gen Z that are like really into Gothic noir and old novels, which is totally becoming a recurrent theme. I mean, you can even see TikTok, they call it like book talk now, where there's like this whole TikTok thread just for kids that really love books, and specifically classic novels, like classic literature. So my hope is to really tap into that with my marketing strategy as I'm trying to build my newsletter list, is to tap into all those like fandoms that exist on the internet and pull them into mine. Make my own.
Awesome. How about one more question, just to be equitable in terms of time? So we got one more question if somebody wants to ask that last one.
I got a quick question. Elle, really great presentation. You can feel your passion, both of you. You can really feel your excitement around what you're presenting today. So if I'm late to the party and I come in and subscribe, I'm a binger. I don't like waiting. I like to sit and watch the whole season in one setting because I'm impatient. If I get in on the serial chapters after you've already put out the first series, and do I have access to all chapters at one time? Or are you putting those on you've got to build my suspense and keep me coming back to make it sticky?
Yep. So if you join 40 weeks into it, then you'll get all 40 weeks immediately. And then you can catch up. It's priced so that it's a higher rate. It's like $8 a month or $5 a month if you buy a year. So it's priced to try to get people to buy an annual versus a monthly, just so that you do want to just like stick around and get the whole thing. But yeah, you can absolutely join late and then catch up instantly.
And if you join,
awesome.
You have to pay for all the chapters, or you just pay one and then you get all of it? Does it, like, so if you come in late, then you just pay for the 1 month, but you have access to all of them?
Yeah, totally. So because it's a subscription, so then once it ends, it'll end in May, and you might if you want to join in April, you might be like, I'll just wait till May and get it for free on Wattpad. But then I'll be launching my next book, and you can get on that one from the beginning. So, which I'm already writing right now, the second one.
Let's give it up one more time for Elle.